Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
And we are in Torah Temimah, starting chapter 19 of the book of Exodus. And we are in the midst of the passage where the two of the angels, as we'll see, arrive at Sodom. And we have that whole episode there that's very dramatic and very disturbing and very sad in many ways, but presumably has things for us to learn regardless. So, Vayavo'u shnei hamalachim, and the two angels came to Sodom ba'erev, in the evening. Lot Yoshev b'shar Sodom. Lot was dwelling at the gates of Sodom. Vayar Lot saw. Vayakom likratam. He arose to greet them, to meet them. Vayishtachu apayim arza, and they bent down to the ground. So again, we sort of have, in a way, a bit of a parallel passage between Abraham meeting the three angels and Lot meeting the two angels. So let's take a look here. I think there is, let me see, yes. Vayavo shnei hamalachim. It says, and the two angels arrived. Ulahalan, and later on it says, Ketiv, it's written, Vayahafoch et ha'arim. He overturned the cities. And the point is, Vayahafoch is singular, and yet it's introducing this passage with two, which would be plural, and that's in verse 25. So, ketzad. What's going on here? How is this possible? Torah Temimah, Ritzonolamar. What he's trying to say is, de patach bishnei malachim, that this passage opens mentioning two angels, v'siyem bechad, but it ends speaking about one. Kamosha katuv, as it's written, vayafoch velo v'yafchu, because it says he overturned, and it doesn't say they overturned. So what's going on here? De azal Gabriel lemahafche liSodom, because the thing is that one of those angels was a Gabriel, and he was going there. His intention was or his purpose, I should say, was to overturn Sodom, to destroy those cities. Ba'azal Michael, and this other angel that was with him was Michael, Bahade, with him, l'shazvei lelot, to rescue Lot. So that's why. And we have this principle that angels have a very strong union, and they only they have one mission at a time. And in fact, with very minor angels, once they achieve their mission, they disappear. They no longer exist. But with archangels and major angels, they do exist to perform a mission, a specific mission at a time, more than one, but at any given time, it's just one mission. And this is in Tractate Bava Metzia, Pevav, that would be 86, page 86b. So let's take a look. Yen Masha Katuv, check out, he says. Yes, Judith?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just, you know, we hear about angels, but then, in the Torah portions, but where do all these names of the angels come from? And
Yeah,
how do they know it's Gabriel and Michael? It doesn't say that right in the text.
no, it doesn't say that in the text, but there's a tradition, of course, we know that goes along with the text, and the name of the angel in some ways describes the purpose of their visits. So, for example, my guess is that Raphael was the third angel because lerapot means to heal, and the purpose they'd come was to help Abraham heal from his circumcision. The word Michael means who is like God. So in this case, it was to rescue Lot, right, to grant him a certain kind of salvation. And Gabriel has to do with the power, the manifestation of the power of God. So I think that's that's at least describes in some ways their missions. But as far as the names are concerned, I have a feeling they go back, pretty far back into the tradition.
Well,
And
there's this Shma al Hamita
yes, right,
angel
right.
prayer. What are
There's
angels and
four
archangels?
angels.
Where should I look this up? Because the people who I know who talk about angel names are mostly Christian.
Uh-huh. I'd probably be going to Google as well, just going to the
Okay.
internet and seeing, what the sources are of this and just trying to gain a little more knowledge. And if you find something interesting, feel free to, next time we get together, let us know. Okay?
Yeah. I just find it hard to figure out what's Jewish. So that's all.
Oh, okay. Well, now you know this is
Okay,
this is
great.
a Jewish thing. So he says right here afterwards, Ien Mashikatuv, look and see what's written Beresh Parsha at the beginning of the Parsha of this. And in other words, at the beginning of this Parsha, because that's where we introduce the angels, right? The Pasuk, right? In the verse it says, Behine shlosha anashim nitzavim, where it introduces them by saying, Abraham sitting at the entrance of his tent, and behold, there were three people. Nitzavim standing. So he has more to say about that there. I won't take a look at it right this second, but at any rate, maybe I'll take a look back at that and see if there's anything to help in terms of your question, Judith. All right. So we have a lot of text now to do of simply the Torah text. So let's go here. Yeah, quite a lot. Next verse. Vayomer, so he said, that is Lot said, Hine na Adonai, he says, behold, my lords, Suru na el beit avdachem, please turn aside to the house of your servant, Velinu, and rest, spend the night, Verachatzu raglechem, and wash your feet, Vihishkamtem, and get up. When you get up early, you're welcome to get up early, Valachtem, ledarchechem, and go on your way and continue on your way. But please, in other words, accept my hospitality. Vayomru, and they said, Lo, no, ki verachov nalim. We'll prefer to just spend the night in the wide area, in the broad place, in the street, in other words, right? Vayivtzar ba'ma'od, and he urged them, Lot urged them very much. Vayasuru elav, and so they turned to him. Vayavo el beito, and they came into his house. Vayas lahem mishteh, he made a feast for them. Umatzot afar v'yochelu, and he baked matzahs, and they ate. And there's a tradition, because it mentions matzahs, that this was actually happening on Pesach. So having a Pesach. Terem yishkavu, they had barely lain down. The Anshe Ha'ir, and the men of the city, Anshe Sodom, the men of Sodom, Nasabu al Habayit, they gathered together, they surrounded the house. Minar va'ad zaken, from youths to the aged. Kula am mikatzeh, the entire body of people, everyone from Sodom, I think is the point that's being made here, is that everyone in Sodom came around to do this. They all gathered around, all these people, the inhabitants of the city. And we now have a specific example of how wicked these people were. Vayikru'u el Lot, and they called out to Lot, Vayomru lo, and they said to him, Ayeh anashim, where are these men asher ba'u lecha la, who came to you tonight, this night? Hotzi'em elenu, take them out, bring them out to us, v'neda'a otam, that we may experience them. And this is where we get the idea of sodomy. V'neda'a otam has to do with having sex with them. That's the idea, that they were going to rape these people. Vayetze alehem Lot hapetcha, and Lot went out to them in the entrance. Va'adelat sagar acharav, and he closed the door behind him. Vayomer, and he said, Alna achai tareu, Do not behave wickedly, my brothers. Hine na li shtei banot. This is now a very disturbing statement here. Hine na li, behold, I have shtei banot, two daughters, asher lo yad'u ish, they've never experienced a man, in other words, who are virgins. Utzia na et hen alechem, let me bring them out to you. Please let me bring them out to you. V'asu lahem, and you can do to them katov be'enechem, as is good in your eyes. In other words, whatever you like. Rak la'anashim ha'el, but to these people, al tasu davar, do not do anything. Ki al ken ba'u, because for this reason, ba'u b'tzel koratim, they came under my roof. They're under my roof. And of course, this sentence is terribly disturbing. The fact that he would treat his daughters this way. And of course, we're going to see what happens later on in the story regarding Lot and his daughters. But of course, this is the beginning of a sense of Lot's personality. That on the one hand, of course, his desire to protect his guests and putting the strangers' protection, above his own families may be a good thing, but on the other hand, to offer his daughters in their place, terrible. And I don't think that the Torah wants us to think anything other than that. And of course, we have the whole idea of Lot living in the cities and the plains. We already got this sense, right, that Lot chose to live in this area because there was good pasturage and things like that. In other words, there were material benefits. But as you can see, spiritually, this was a devastating place. And that is something that the Torah wants us to understand in terms of putting spiritual practices above material benefits. So there's really a deep message going on here, but in this very disturbing kind of way. And perhaps the Torah wants us to be disturbed. Yes, Judith.
Well, Lot's wife does not end up surviving, but
No.
why was Lot rescued?
Uh, I think simply because he was Abraham's nephew. And I think that in some ways, by the way, he was, I believe, Sarah's brother. Lot was Sarah's brother. And I I think that there's a message there that in some ways, because we have in our own tradition something called Zachut Avot, the merit of the patriarchs, and the idea that in some ways, given our own imperfections and the level of those imperfections, that in some ways God has mercy on us simply because we are descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I think the corollary message there is that our own behavior, in the way that we behave and in our own righteousness, we can bring salvation to our descendants as well. That there's a level of responsibility and capability that we have in terms of the lives we live as far as God's mercy on our own descendants. Do you want to follow up, Judith, with any other question on this? Yes, no? Okay.
No,
Feel
thank you.
of
Thank you.
course. Okay. Um, and we'll discuss Lot's wife later on. We will understand. There's a great lesson on that one too, as to what happens to her. But look at what the people of Sodom say to Lot. Vayomru, and they said, Gesh hala, get closer, come here, right? Vayomru, and they were saying, Ha'echad ba lagur, this one comes as a stranger. In other words, he's not a native, right? He's a stranger, Vaishpot shafot, right? He's basically an alien, and here he is making judgments. He's telling us how we're to behave. So look at how politely Lot pleads with them, the way he does, and look at how they react to him. Who are you to tell us how to behave? Ata, now, nara lecha mehem, we're going to do worse to you than we were going to do to the strangers, to your guests. Vayiftzuru be'ish Lot, and they attempted to grab him in this man in Lot Ma'od, right? They struggled hard to gain Lot, to gain mastery over him. Vayikshu lishbor hadelet, and so they got closer to break down the door. Vayishlachu hanashim et yadam, and the people, this is referring now to the angels, they cast forth their hands, they set forth their hands, vayavu et Lot, and they brought Lot, alahem, to them, habaita, inside the house. So they rescued him there. Ve'etadelat sagaru, and they closed the door. Ve'et hanashim, and as for the people on the outside, asher petach habayit, who were at the entrance of the house, hiku besan verim, they smote them with blindness. In other words, and it has to do with ner and nor, with dazzling light. Mikaton v'ad gadol, from young to old. In other words, all of them. Vayil'u limtzu hapetach, and so they labored to find the entrance. They couldn't find the entrance to the house anymore. So now Lot and his wife and his family are at least safe for the time being. Vayamru ha'anashim el Lot, and the people, the men said to Lot, Ad mi lecha po, who else do you have here? Chatan, your son-in-law, uvanecha, your sons, uvnotecha, and your daughters, in other words, any other members of the family, v'chol asher lecha ba'ir, or anyone who you have, who's related to you in the city. Hotzei min hamakom, get them out of here. Make sure they leave. Ki mashchitim anachnu, because we are going to destroy et hamakom hazeh, this place. Ki gadlat zakatam ibnei Hashem, for the outcry is great and has reached God, has reached the Lord. Right? Vayishalchenu Adonai l'shachta, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. Vayetze Lot, and Lot went out, Vaydaber el chatanav, he spoke to his sons-in-law, Lokchei benotav, those who had married his daughters, Vayomer, and he said, Kumu, get up, Tzu min hamakom hazeh, leave, get out of this place. Ki mashchit Hashem et ha'ir, for the Lord is going to destroy the city. Vayhi kemitzachek beinei chatanav, but it looked to his sons-in-law as if he were joking. Uchamo hashachar Allah, and as dawn broke, vaya'itzu hamalachim belot lemor, and the angels urged Lot, saying, Kum, get up, kach et ishtecha, take your wife, et shtei benotecha, and your two daughters, hanimsaot, who are here, pen tisafeh, lest you are swept away, be'avon ha'ir, in the iniquity of the city. So now we have some Torah Temimah. Uchemo hashachar Allah, and just as dawn was breaking. Sometimes shachar is understood as the morning star, but regardless, I believe we're talking about daybreak. Amar Rabba bar Rav Chana, said Rabba bar Rav Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'alot hashachar, from daybreak ad netzachama, to sunrise. Adam mahalech chamisha milim, a person can walk 5 miles in the time from daybreak to sunup. Dichtiv, as it says, uchamo hashachar Allah, and just as the dawn was breaking, or rather as dawn was breaking, vaya'itzu hamalachim balot, the angels were urging Lot, le'mor kum, saying, get up, etc. Uchtiv, and a little later on in Pasuk Kaf Gimel, in verse 23, Hashemesh yatsa ala aretz, the sun went out over the earth. In other words, now we're talking about sunup, sunrise, v'lot ba Tzoara, and Lot arrived at Tzoar, at the town of Tzoar. Amar Rabbi Chanina, and Rabbi Chanina said, Lididi chazili hahu atra. I personally saw that area, v'haveh chamisha milim, and it turns out to be a distance of 5 miles, and that's in Pesachim, Tractate Pesachim, page 93b. Taking a look at this. V'da'at chad man de'amar, but there's an opinion, there's a certain individual who has the opinion that in the amount of this time that we're talking about, from daybreak to sunrise, Adam Mahalech Rak Arba'a Mil, that a person can only walk 4 miles. So there's a difference of opinion. Umasha Alach Kan Lot, and in his opinion, how he explains that Lot traversed Chamisha, 5 miles, Hu Mishum Dichtiv Bey. The reason is that regarding him, it's written, Vaya'itzu Hamlachim Belot, right? That because the angels were urging him, V'halach Bechipason, he went in a hurry. Or Kamusha Katuv Yerushalmi, or we could say, as is written in the Yerushalmi, in the Talmud Yerushalmi, Brachot Perek Aleph Halacha A, in Tractate Brachot chapter 1 Halacha 5 Halacha 1, excuse me, Halacha, but hey, Halacha Aleph, and also in Yoma, right? And this is, I think, also the Yerushalmi. I'm gonna guess Perek Gimel, chapter 3, Halacha Bet, second Halacha. This is the way the Jerusalem Talmud is organized by chapters and halachot. Shem malach haya koder, that there was an angel who was cutting through the fanav et haderech. In other words, he was basically making a highway for him. Klomar, that is to say, meyasher hagvaot, he would straighten out the hills, v'ha'amakim, and the valleys, v'lachen nitkatzer lefanav haderech, and for that reason, the way was shorter, milim, and he actually, of course, went 5 miles in the time one would normally only go 4 miles. But the truth is, we don't hold like this particular opinion, like the person who holds the opinion of just 4 miles in the time from daybreak to sunrise. Elagam halicha, let's see. Beinonit, this is not a mem, it's a nun and a vav. But he says, but even an average walk, Adam Malech, a person can go, Beshiur Zeh, in this amount of time, Chamisha Milim, 5 miles. V'lachen hishmatnu otat rasha, and for that reason, we left out that particular drasha. In other words, in these passages up there, he didn't include it in it because it's not a position that in general is expected. Let's see. Okay. Let's see where we can go here. All right. Well, maybe we'll try one more. Okay. Yeah. Unless people want to comment in the time that we have left. All right. So let's go back.
And we do have a Kaddish Rabbanan also.
Oh, wonderful. All right. So maybe it's a good place. This next passage is really very good. I will tell you though, we will not meet tomorrow because I'm going to leave early. At this point, I'm leaving early to go to LA. And let's see here. Okay, right there. That's where we're going to be. And we'll go ahead and make the Kaddish to Rabbanan. I'll stop the share and we'll go ahead and make Kaddish to Rabbanan. I'm going to stop the recording. Before we say Kaddish to Rabbanan, does anybody want to say anything for the record?
I'm just a little curious about the reason that Lot was willing to offer his daughters was because daughters were just like property. You know,
I know. It's honestly, it's very disturbing. They're still human beings. And the Torah doesn't make any distinction regarding men and women, regarding, being created in the divine image or anything like that. I know. Look, the situation he found himself was terrible.
yeah.
Terrible. But still, I mean, what choices did he have? And then in some ways, I'm wondering if, in terms of the narrative itself, it's trying to say how being in a perverse society, being in a society like that can also affect one's own values, etc. Yes, Ernie.
Kind of to Morris's point, in the Book of Judges, there's a similar episode that happens
Yes,
where a Levite is in the Benjaminite area,
right.
and the guy kind of offers up his concubine.
Hmm.
So, kind of to
Yes,
some of the points that are being brought up, is this happened not just in Sodom, but in the
right.
Israelite camp as well.
Yes, it's called in Hebrew Pilegesh Hagivah, the concubine from Gibeah, and it is a terrible, terrible, terrible story. But the truth is that even nowadays we see, women treated by men in ways that are abhorrent, abhorrent. That people who are in positions of power, the abuse of that power in absolutely abhorrent ways. Sadly, if we don't live our lives with the values of Torah, these things happen. They can happen. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to stop the recording with this, and we'll